Welcome into the Rumbles of Red. My name's Trevor Steinbacher. Tonight, I'm bringing on a new guest. We're going to talk some Dynasty rankings. Our Dynasty rankings are up at fantasyintervention.com. Bringing in Chase of Vernon. Chase, you're one of the guys that really have allowed it, to make it happen for me, allowing me to publish my rankings on your website. I'm ecstatic that you're joining us tonight. Stoked that to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And how's it going?
Oh, it's going very well, my friend. Sorry, you probably had to mute me because the Jets were going overhead.
I don't even realize. That's what threw me off right at the beginning. That was a great intro.
Yeah. Just, hey, let's go live. And as soon as we go live, we're going to have a jet just fly overhead and be loud as hell. I saw your face. You looked like utterly confused. So sorry about that intro, man. Hopefully if you throw this on a show later on a podcast, maybe you can clip that out. But anyways, man, no, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure, man. It's been great having you as part of the team as well. Yeah, it took me about 5 or 6 months to finally get them up, but we got our fantasy intervention rankings up there for Dynasty single quarterback leagues. Very excited to have those up there. You guys can go check it out at fantasyintervention.com, and you'll see Dynasty rankings up there for y'all.
And we'll talk through some of those. We'll talk through a couple of specific players. If you are joining us tonight in the chat, feel free to interact with the show. Drop some Dynasty questions you might have. Maybe your analysis of our rankings. Are we too high, too low on players? I always enjoy interacting with the chat and hope to see you guys interact with the show tonight. Before we get into our Dynasty rankings, want to talk a little bit about some NFL news from the week. The first one, we could probably spend an entire show on. There has been an entire show spent on talking about Cam Akers, torn Achilles. We learned about it Tuesday morning. Just a devastating blow to really anybody who talks fantasy football. I think a lot of guys were just very high on Cam Akers and hope nothing but the best for his recovery. But since we're kind of talking Dynasty today, Chase, I do want to pick your brain a little bit. How much does this affect your Dynasty rankings for Cam Akers and also his backup, Darrell Henderson?
So the reality with Achilles injuries, right, is like there hasn't been a great history of recoveries from Achilles injuries. It hurts your burst, your ability to accelerate once you get the ball. We're talking about Cam Akers, who's 22, 23 years old. I mean, this is something as to where talking about a very young player with a injury that has hindered people, but yet there's been strides made in the medical community to where they're actually getting better and better at dealing with these and doing certain things to, get them back up and running sooner, pun completely intended. So sitting there and looking at it, I think that we're going to see Cam Akers return to a decent level of production, maybe not this upcoming season, obviously, but the following season, I think he could be up and running. I mean, we've seen Emmanuel Sanders recover relatively quickly. And although he wasn't the same player, talking about a wide receiver who's 31, 32 at the time of the injury, he's still able to play. He's on his third season since the Achilles injury. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue for Cam Akers at his age. However, I did have to move him down my rankings, not just because he's missing this year, but just because of the overall concerns. However, keep in mind that with Cam Akers, if you're trying to unload him now is the worst time to do so. I couldn't think of a worse time to unload Cam Akers.
Everybody's going to want to come after him really cheap. Throw some junk at you. Hope that you're panicking on Cam Akers.
Yeah, I mean, why not wait until next year, right? When all the training camp reports come out and they're like, oh, he's looking like he's just as fast as he was before. He's looking faster than ever. I mean, we saw it with Cooper Kupp, for example, with I think his ACL or whatever it was. And they're like, dude, he's looking faster than he's ever looked his entire life. And you hear it every single year because that's what beat reporters do in order to get clicks, in order to get likes, is they sit there and they promote good things happening with their team that they're covering so that they continue to get fans on board with them. It might not be the right report. It might be a new beat reporter who maybe didn't see these players in person. It's so many different variances. But now is not the time to trade Cam Akers. You need to wait till these positive reports start coming out, going into next season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I actually have sent a couple of low ball trades for Cam. I'm not actively buying him, but if I'm going to be able to send you a third or fourth rounder and you're going to take it, I feel like I might as well, I'll take that wild card. I moved him down as well. Obviously, I moved him down to 27. A lot of the players that most people are talking about outside of Emmanuel Sanders, who, as you mentioned, came back and has been somewhat successful, but most of the other guys who never played another down of football or maybe half a year and then they're out again. To me, they were all, none of those guys were young, or if they were young, they didn't have the pedigree that we feel like Cam Akers has, the talent that this guy brings to the table. I want to ask you, and it probably will never happen, but am I crazy to think that could Cam Akers just sit out 2 full years and be 24 years old coming into training camp in 2023, fully healthy, a year removed from any type of surgeries or any type of Achilles injury? Or is that too long for a running back to wait?
Yeah, I think it's far, far, far too long. I mean, we're talking about being, a month out from the season, minimum, 6 weeks, right, out from the season?
Yeah.
And, Achilles injuries normally take about 9 weeks, I believe. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's about 9 weeks or so for a player to recover from Achilles injury. So obviously you want a full year to be able to get his strength back up and his speed. But I mean, even if he ends up on the, on the PUP list, right, he'll be playing next season. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think if you leave a player on the shelf too long, not only are they not conditioned for that upcoming season, but injuries seem to occur a lot more often if players do end up missing 2 seasons in a row.
That's understandable. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that would even be something worth thinking about. Just wanting to get him as healthy as possible, and I'm sure with the salary cap and the numbers and the money, that's going to play a big part of it as well. Did you move Darrell Henderson up, the coveted backup everybody's talking about right now, and a lot of people are trading him very high right now? Did you move him up in your rankings quite a bit, or just a couple of spots here and there?
Henderson made a jump, man. I mean, it was like in the chat over there. Dallas S is saying that Henderson was a second-round, it's like Akers. And yeah, he was. And his breakaway ability is uncanny. His ability to find that seam and get upfield, it's awesome. He caught passes out of the backfield in college. So, look for that to happen, especially at Stafford, who likes to dump it off as a whole anyway. I like Henderson. I really do. But is it ever going to be just his backfield? No, you need to treat Henderson like he's a RB2. Mid to late RB2 essentially. And like I was in a best ball draft, somebody took him in the second round. That was absolutely ridiculous.
Oh my.
Like ridiculous. Like you're not getting the whole point of getting Henderson or having Henderson or trading for him is getting value and having him outproduce your level you're taking him at, right? If you're if you're trading a late first round form, typically be mid range, you're the ceiling for him, or you're paying for his, if you trade a late for the best outcome he could possibly get. I don't think Henderson is ever going to be a top 12 running back. I think going to remain in that the 18 to 24 range, with his upside being like RB14, RB13, somewhere in that range. They're definitely going to bring somebody in though.
Yeah, I think the early reports have been they're high on these other guys that are farther down their depth chart. I think I'm definitely in the camp that I believe that they'll bring somebody in as well. And like I said, we could definitely talk about that whole offense as a whole. That could be a whole nother show. And I know you've been talking about those guys quite a bit this week. But let's move to the other piece of news. It's not really that newsworthy. It's just Tom Brady's agent coming out talking about he's expecting him to play 2 more years, and he probably will, right? But does that change anything for you in terms of rankings? Are you ranking him now that to already expect he's going to play next year, or does that maybe make you want to move him up a little bit because of the thought that he'll be around 2 more years?
I mean, I kind of already expected him to play for a couple more years. He's gonna stay right where he is. He's gonna be right in that Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins type range for me. Just because I know that he always will have like a couple years left, if that. But for dynasty purposes, you're literally only going to try and and get shares of him if you don't have him already, if you're a contending team. In which case, like, what can he offer you when it comes to upside? Like single quarterback leagues, he doesn't really do much for me. 2 quarterback leagues, yeah, I really like him at that point. But how much are you willing to give? And how much is that the owner trying to get? Essentially, I don't know. It's something as to where, like, I just think people overvalue him. And the lifetime expectancy for me with quarterbacks, right? I want 10 years minimum out of a quarterback if I'm trying to acquire him. If I'm trying to acquire a quarterback, I want to have 10 fantasy seasons of this player. I call it like the bell curve of lifetime production, essentially, as to where right now with the way that quarterbacks are going, we're seeing close to 20 years worth of production out of these younger players. Back in the day, when fantasy was starting out, or when I started out with fantasy, I should say, in like the early 2000s, we were sitting there and we were looking at quarterbacks, and they weren't starting right off the bat. I mean, sure, you had Phillip Rivers, you had Ben Roethlisberger, and you had Eli Manning. But outside of that, like, quarterbacks really weren't starting until their second or third year. And even if they did start right off the bat, if they're like the first overall pick, they were taking up like 13 to 15% of the salary cap for that team. That's absolutely insane. Like Phillip Rivers, I think in particular, or Eli Manning in particular, took up like 13 to 15% of their team's salary cap. That means that you can't surround them with good players. Then the 2011 CBA happened, and they were able to kind of knock down what these rookie quarterbacks were getting. So it wasn't as detrimental to franchises long term. When you sit there and you look at it now, they're only taking up like 4%, 5% of their team's salary cap. So they're able to surround these quarterbacks while they're on their rookie contract with more talented players, better offensive linemen, better weapons, better running backs, better defenses. Like everything becomes easier for a quarterback now. So now we're getting 2 to 3 years minimum extra production out of a rookie quarterback that we normally wouldn't have seen because rookie quarterbacks were terrible. Second-year quarterbacks were terrible, right? Even Peyton Manning was terrible in his rookie season. Yet, or I should say, and now you're seeing completely different opposite ends of the spectrum. Ever since I want to say like Russell Wilson was probably one of the first ones to see a team surround a rookie quarterback with so much talent. Granted, he was a third-round pick, but still he was under the 2011 CBA. So we're getting a few extra years of production early. Now, with the way that the medical field is developing, and injuries to players aren't as serious at the quarterback position, we're also getting an extra 5 or 6 years to the quarterback position. And it's not just Tom Brady, right? We're seeing Aaron Rodgers. We're seeing Matt Ryan. We're seeing these players play way later into their careers. And I think that quarterbacks now, if you come in when you're 22, right, or 21 years old, you come in when you're a young buck, and you're able to play until you hit 40, you're talking about 20 years worth of production in Dynasty. 20 years. So instead of messing with these Derek Carrs, with these Tom Brady's, with these, Kirk Cousins type players where you don't know how much more production they have. They might have 5 or 6 years of mediocre production. Granted, Tom Brady's great. I'm talking about fantasy production. People don't get too mad.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sit there and waste second-round picks over and over again. I'd much rather invest in a young stud quarterback who's going to give me 20 years, and then I don't have to worry about drafting another guy. I don't have to worry about trading another second-round pick for a Tom Brady in 2 quarterback leagues. I don't have to worry about grabbing one of these players. So anybody that has like 6 or 7 years or less on their roster or on their projected lifetime value of mediocre production, I'm getting out of. I don't want anything to do with it. Sorry, that was a little long-winded. I don't know if we lost all of your viewers.
No, absolutely. No, I think you're spot on in the terms of just the length of time and the reasoning why. And I was actually just getting excited because I kept thinking back to our startup draft and when I got Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes. Like I did exactly what you're talking about here. Just get my 2 quarterbacks and just be done. I don't have to worry about, granted there's injuries and those other things and things change in a hurry with Dynasty, but ideally I'm set for as long as we want. I'm set at quarterback because I've got those young studs. Last week, so I know it's not this week's news, but last week we did learn of 2 guys that are going to be playing this year on the franchise tag. And I want to kind of see what your value long term, if that changes. Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, it makes sense for them. they should play on the franchise tag because they're going to get a lot more money next year than they would have gotten this offseason. But in terms of dynasty value, does it bother you, or are you worried about not knowing, what their situation is going to look like next year? If you're drafting right now or making trades, are these guys that you're okay with still acquiring, even though they are playing on the franchise tag and we don't really have a secure future situation for them?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, sitting there and looking at Allen Robinson, I'm pretty much off of at this point anyways. He had his 1 year, like he's hit that age apex. Yeah, if I'm a competitive team, I'm trying to get him, don't get me wrong. But in most cases, I'm seeing what I can get for him before his value just ends up dropping. Whether that's because he's with a different team or, not just because of his age in general. I just want to see what I can get. Just want to see what happens with that. So, yeah, Allen Robinson, I'm off of. Chris Godwin, however, at 25 years old, I don't care where he lands. That kid's a stud. And honestly, I kind of want him to go to a different team just because, Tom Brady only has a couple of years left. And then all of a sudden, what, are we going to go with Kyle Trask as our starting quarterback? I don't think so. I think that the best case scenario is that Chris Godwin ends up with a young stud quarterback, somebody with like maybe a Trey Lance would make a lot of sense, since the 49ers ended up trading away their next 2 years worth of first-round draft picks. So if they need to find him a weapon, and Deebo Samuel can't stay healthy, Brandon Ayuk can't stay healthy, George Kittle can't stay healthy, and they want to nab Chris Godwin, I think that's a great fit. He's going to play close to the line of scrimmage. They're going to freeze linebackers, and then he's going to have plenty of room to run before he ends up getting tackled. He could lead the league in yards after the catch easily if he ends up there. I view his situation very similar to Juju Smith-Schuster, as to where, they have 1 year contracts, but they're proven contracts. These guys are studs, and I actually kind of hope that both of them end up in different situations.
Yeah, both guys are sharing all the volume right now. Could be wide receiver ones elsewhere. I got really excited. Chris Godwin to San Fran. Debo's probably one injury away from potentially losing all of his chances. I mean, unfortunately, because I think that he's got some talent. And I'm interested in Ayuk this year, second year wide receiver. I think he could break out, but even if he is great and he stays healthy, still add Chris Godwin to that. That could be pretty sick out in San Fran. Let's go ahead and jump into these rankings. There's training camp starting, but there hasn't been a lot come out of that quite yet. Excited for training camp finally to get started. It feels like the Chiefs' loss in the Super Bowl is finally starting to die and it's starting to fade off into the sunset, and we can start looking at next year finally with training camps coming up. So not a lot of news coming out of there though. So let's go ahead and jump into the rankings. And before we start talking about players specifically, can you provide just a general overview? How do we both approach dynasty rankings? I'll let you go first. Just how do you approach just the overall ranking of players as you start to put it pen to paper? What's kind of coming to your mind?
All right. So first off, we talked about the bell curve production, right? Where I believe age-adjusted stats should come into play. And depending on how you draft, depending on where you are, you need to kind of assess your team. There's no reason in hell that you should have a Chris Carson on the same team as a Jamar Chase, maybe, right? You should never have rookie wide receivers, young tight ends on the same team with aging veteran running backs. So if I'm trying to rebuild, I'm going to trade away those veteran running backs and try and invest in 2023 draft picks where the running back class is going to be very solid. Hopefully, as we sit there and we look forward to it, it's getting these players in the same production timeline. So if I have Jamar Chase, by the way, could be fine this year. He could do very well, but Justin Jefferson, who was his former teammate, that's kind of going to be a long shot to an extent that kind of production happens. I'd much rather try to invest in my future versus trying to make a run with young wide receiver talents that are, still going to take a year or two to break out. I think that Jamar Chase best time moving forward is probably going to be 2 to 3 years in the league, right? And he's going to end up hitting his peak of production and produce at a higher level. And then all of a sudden I'm running in there with like Bijan Robinson and Tank Bisbee. And like all of a sudden my team is stacked loaded because I invested in 2023 draft picks, which people aren't even paying attention to right now. So when you try to get these players on the right level of production, like you try to get a Kyle Pitts, at a young age, right? You invest in him, you invest in Jamar Chase, you invest in some of the younger receivers like T. Higgins, whatnot, right? You kind of want to set your team up for success to where they all go off at the same exact time. We've seen with rookie running backs, there are very few that are like, I can't even say the Christian McCaffreys because of the fact that he got hurt. And then I wanted to go with Ezekiel Elliott, but, he didn't produce very well over the past 2 years. I mean, he produced great, don't get me wrong, but like he, not at their peak. Not even Saquon Barkley. So I'd much rather have like rookie running backs at their peak time, which is early in their careers within the first 4 years, when also they're less expensive and they can have better offensive lines surrounding them and they can have other pieces to help them out. Much rather have these younger running backs with veteran wide receivers than have veteran running backs with rookie wide receivers. And so getting all these guys on the same bell curve, essentially, as to where they're all going to hit at the same exact time is crucial to your dynasty development. And if you're sitting there and you're looking at your roster and you have like a Chris Carson, you have a Mike Davis, you have a David Johnson on your roster, and then you have some rookie wide receivers, just trade them. Like, get rid of them. Like, there's no point to you trying to compete this year. I understand that it's tough to rebuild sometimes, but rebuilding now and trying to get assets now is going to set you up in such a better position, because not only do you get acquisitions, right? You get points for acquiring players that, are later on our draft picks, I should say. Not only do you get draft pick values, you are also going to lose this year. And that sounds terrible, right? Like, you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose. But if you get first place, right, in the NFL draft, you get that first overall pick. That is added value. You all of a sudden go from the 6th pick to the 1st pick. Think about the trades that have happened in your leagues. And if you don't trade a lot in your leagues, or your league doesn't trade a lot, go and look at like Dynasty Trade Calculator, right? Sit there and look at who you have and see if you can actually end up adding value. Or take a look at those trades that happened and see if there's a significant jump from the 6th pick to the 1st pick. And I can guarantee you, some people probably traded 2 first-round picks to try and get up to the 101. So, yeah, Matt brought up Derrick Henry in the chat. I think that Derrick Henry is a great point as to a player that, he's continued to produce, but he also had a late breakout. He didn't break out until his 3rd year in the league because of DeMarco Murray. So, and also it was like the late 3rd year too. It was like his last 5 games of the season. Derrick Henry is the exception to the rule, but he didn't even have the first 2 years as productive years.
But he's probably a guy that if you've got a bunch of rookie wide receivers, he's a guy that you could sell for good value still.
Oh, dude, you could crush
before he falls off, And
I think that Derrick Henry has 2 to 3 good years left. So I'm not telling you, like, if you're a competitive team, don't just go be like, oh, I'm trying to build for the future. Let's think about the future. No, don't do that. But if it's a team where like you're questioning your production, I mean, you could probably get 3 first-round picks for Derrick Henry in some leagues, maybe more, because people that like Derrick Henry really like Derrick Henry.
Oh yeah. And you made a good point about like you have to buy into the rebuild. If you're ready for that, you have to really buy into that rebuild. And I think that's really hard for fantasy players, because we're also very prideful people. We want to win. We don't want to lose every game and get the first overall pick. It is great value, and as somebody who is currently in a rebuild, it's just difficult sometimes, because you have to really buy into losing, and nobody likes to lose, especially in a dynasty league where you don't really get a reset next year. You got to keep going with these players. I am actually in the middle of doing it. I drafted all wide receivers last year, and the whole point was I wasn't ready to win. So I was going to take wide receivers and allow those wide receivers a couple of years to get acclimated to become those elite wide receivers, hopefully anyways. And before I jump on the running backs and go for that championship potentially in 2023. And then also the other point you really made that stuck with me is looking a couple years down the road. Not as many players are looking at the 2023, especially casual players. They're not looking at the 2023 draft picks, the 2024 draft picks. So looking further down and snagging some of those future picks now when nobody else is really paying attention to them will help with that rebuild.
So real quick, I put on the bottom of the screen, I don't know if you see it or not, but I'm sharing you a team that I have a rebuild with. I have like 15 Dynasty leagues, but real quick, this is a team that I won 2 years in a row with, right? 2 years in a row with from 2018, 2019. And my players started aging, right? So I wanted to go ahead and get into a rebuild, a single quarterback league. It's like my last single quarterback league I'm left in. But essentially I went into a rebuild, or wait, it was 2018, 2019. I traded away all my assets. And now you're looking at Trevor Lawrence, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark, CeeDee Lamb, George Kittle, Michael Pittman. Marquise Brown isn't great, but I mean, you can literally see, I mean, A.J. Dillon, my roster goes on and on with just studs, like, for the most part, and prospects for the future. Rondale Moore was another pick that I got, first-round pick, and I still ended up having 4 picks in the first round next year and 3 picks in 2023. So as I sit there and look into it, like, I mean, it's an absolute, like, power move to be able to rebuild when you still have a good team but a declining team. It's a power move, because guess what? Each year that you win, you're paying for like 6 to 8 years worth of entries. So you already won, right? You already won your league. Now you're paying, the first time you win, you're paying the years previous to it and the years that are up. Michael Bowers said Chase's roster baiting. Yes, sir, I am. One of the many times I've done it tonight. Anyways, no, but sitting there and looking at it, like we're talking about, having an ultimate power move, because the first time that you end up winning, you pay for the previous years and you pay for like a couple years in the future. If you win a second time, especially in a row, you're pretty much playing on house money for the next 6 to 8 years. 6 to 8 years you're playing with house money. If you win twice in a row, just go ahead and go rebuild, unless you can dominate the upcoming year, unless all your players are under the age of like 28, 27, somewhere in that range. But like, you can just go and just repeat. Right. And all of a sudden, like, you're set to win, maybe not in 2020, 2021, but 2022, you're stacked again. And you're going to be stacked, by the way, for the next 4 years as to where you can compete. And you could possibly win 4 years in a row. Like, I'm telling you, like, the way that I draft is all very calculated based off the other people's draft. I want to go win now so that I do play with house money. That's one case scenario. If I want to go draft and win for the future, that's another case scenario. Rankings, however, back to your original question, rankings are pretty much, based on immediate value, essentially. Like, if I was ready to win now, who would I go get, to an extent? Or if I was an up-and-coming team, I think like a competitive team. Like, I'm not going to base rankings off of, losing teams or rebuilding teams. I'm going to base my rankings off of an up-and-coming team that's competitive.
Yeah, you're making great points that I just want to keep talking. Like, I want to keep talking to it, and then I also want to go on to the actual players and discuss some players. But before we do that, I just want to follow up with the point of just the idea behind, once you win, you're paying 6 to 8 years, depending on what your pot is and depending on how much is paid out. But the ultimate power, like, to be able to come back and say, I was in the basement. We're prideful players. I said that earlier. I was in the basement. I had the number 1 overall pick, and now I'm winning championships. But I think what we actually see from most dynasty players is more of the middling road, right? They've got some good players, probably too many good players to lose enough games to get some great rookies. Maybe they don't make a lot of good moves. And then you've got the other middling players who they just want to get all the rookies every year because they get the rookie fever. So they're gonna sell off, the third or fourth year players so they can get more rookie picks. You see that a lot with Dynasty. I feel like I see that a lot with the guys I'm playing with. Just either they really love the rookies every year, or they love their Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry, Zeke's, those guys who are probably going to fall off at some point, but they've only got like 1 or 2 of them, and they're not willing to move them because they feel like this is the year, when really they're one injury away from having nothing again this year. So they're just a middling team.
You're the Travis Kelce fan over there, and you actually did a quick shot. You did a quick shot for Fantasy Intervention. You guys go check it out. Fantasy Intervention or youtube.com/Fantasy Intervention. Go check out the quick shot. Trevor said it's time to trade Travis Kelce in Dynasty. And I mean, this is coming from the Kansas City Chief fan over there. Like, it's all red on that side. Is that even a red? Is that like a burnt amber t-shirt?
Yeah. I went all red tonight. It wasn't on purpose, honestly, but
you should paint your walls red.
Just happened. Yeah. my wife would love that. Let's talk about some players. I want to get into some of these guys we have closely ranked together. Some of these guys were on opposite ends of the spectrum with our rankings. Listening to you over the first 30 minutes, I actually probably have a good feeling of why we're different on some of the rankings. And it kind of already makes me want to maybe move some of these guys down. The first one is Aaron Rodgers. I want to talk about him. You have him down at overall 187. The reigning MVP getting no love from you. It sounds like a little bit of it probably has to do with what you mentioned earlier. You want that 10-year window. You want those guys that are going to be around for a while. Does his situation that he's currently in play a factor in any of this as well with the reasoning why you're a little lower on Aaron Rodgers?
Honestly, it has nothing to do with the situation. I think Aaron Rodgers he's just trolling. Like, Aaron Rodgers is trolling right now, and I love watching it. Like, it's so funny to watch this guy just troll every single team. I mean, every single media outlet, I should say.
And he's in complete control of it.
He is, and it's hilarious.
He's in complete control.
I think that he shows up. I know he hates the situation, but I do think he shows up at the end of camp. With that being said, once again, I need more than a 2-year guarantee that he's going to play. Unless, I guess, it's a competitive team and somebody wants to dump him because they're rebuilding his team, I'm not going to try and go out and get him. Everybody thinks that their team is ready to compete. Everybody thinks they have a good team. And half these teams are absolute garbage. So trying to acquire, Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to be an easy task because everybody thinks that they're going to have, they're going to win the championship this year. So guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, I don't really want anything to do with them unless I already have them or unless somebody's just dumping them for like a third-round pick, essentially.
I do have him a little bit higher, and I didn't really take in the years into consideration as much with my rankings. Probably more the past. I do think we'll see 3 to 5 more years, and like you had mentioned with
it's a lot.
You mentioned with the the players are the quarterbacks are playing a little bit longer now, and I know Tom Brady's he's duping us and just making us think that every quarterback can play that long. We know that can't happen. But even if he gets to 40, 41, I think he might still be playing at that point. I don't think we're going to get MVP caliber play like we got last year, but he did. It blows my mind every time I see it. They scored a passing touchdown. 72% of their touchdowns was through the air. And he had 2.9 passing touchdowns a game last year. I know that doesn't automatically mean he's going to get 3 touchdowns a game again this year, but to be able to put a guy in your lineup and you feel like, well, there's 3 passing touchdowns I just put in my lineup this week. That's why I have him a little higher. I have him at my quarterback 10, just because I do think we see 2 to 3 to 5 years and the talent. It didn't feel like watching him last year he was dropping off anytime soon. We'll have to see how that plays out over the next couple of years. I do think he'll be back in Green Bay as well. I agree with you there, but I don't think it matters for his athletic ability. Just the things that he does is very special at quarterback, but he doesn't have the rushing upside. He's not going to be I wouldn't be able to get him any higher. And I think he'll just be a declining asset over the next 3 to 5 years. But right now, I don't mind him being up a little higher than where you were. Another guy on the complete opposite end of his career, right? This guy's going into his first training camp as the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. He's going to have an opportunity to prove his doubters wrong, but you don't seem to be a doubter here. It seems like you might like Jalen Hurts a little bit. You've got him at 93rd overall. What do you like about his prospects?
I mean, he's still like quarterback, like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range for me. I'm not huge on Jalen Hurts, but I mean, his rushing upside is just, absolute monster. He was able to put up massive fantasy points. And I think he has one more year with the Eagles before they actually try and replace him, unless he can not turn the ball over. I mean, what do you have, like 9 fumbles and 6 interceptions, something like that? It was absolutely insane for like a 4-game span. He needs to protect the ball. He has to protect the ball. But as long as he's the starter over there, I don't think Joe Flacco is going to be taking his job. So, I mean, if he can give me that amount of fantasy points and, be productive, the reason why I have him up higher than, because I did say, like, there's a year, is because if he does protect the ball, his upside is just so spectacular. His upside's so immense. We could be looking at like Lamar Jackson type numbers, but a slightly better passer. Not great, but a slightly better passer. And the Eagles system is going to call for him to pass more often than what they've designed over there for Baltimore. Now, people that love Lamar Jackson, don't get me wrong, I think Lamar Jackson's getting better. His efficiency's up, like, yada, yada. But, I mean, we're talking about Jalen Hurts, who played 4 games as a rookie, being able to take over this main role. I mean, he could absolutely still crush it and improve from year, 2 to year 3. I can't wait until he goes to Palmer. What's his first name? The quarterback's coach or the quarterback trainer who works out there in California and ended up switching up Josh Allen's career. It's Palmer's little brother. Yeah,
Ryan Palmer.
Is it Ryan?
I don't know why Ryan. I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's a good trivia question. It's good. It's a good bar trivia.
I would normally
know
it, but my brain is full today. So yeah, I'm sitting there looking at it, and I think that Hurts is going to be a potential smash, but there's a lot of risk too. I actually have a 4-team trade out right now where I'm trying to acquire him in a 4-team trade.
A 4-team trade. I've never pulled off a 4-team trade, but
I haven't either. It's my goal, and then I'm going to go for a 5-team trade. And after I hit a 5-team trade, I'm going to go for a 12-team trade where everybody in the whole league trades one person. Yep, it's one of my goals. I have weird goals. I don't know why.
Is it Jordan Palmer?
Jordan Palmer. That's it. That's the one. Yes,
it's
Jordan Palmer.
Ryan Palmer plays golf. At least I got a Palmer right. At least it was right. He is a real person. He's just not the person we were talking about. I fully agree with you on Jalen Hurts. I also have him at quarterback 12. I have him a little lower overall in ranks. That could just be a quarterback versus other positions thing going on. I love his prospects this year. I think he's got a great opportunity to be very successful in 2021. But I think it's well documented. The Eagles have a lot of draft capital coming up. If he doesn't perform well, it could be a very quick career for Philadelphia, especially having a new regime there. I worry about that. Just like you said, like that's the worry. I love him this year, but it's going to be hard for me to draft him in Dynasty or even acquire him in Dynasty because there's too much unknown for next year.
I've got my 4-team trade, in the share.
Let's see.
So I'm sending away Kadarius Toney in a 2022 first. I'm getting Hurts. I have my 2022 first going to one person. They're going to be giving up Fuller in a 3rd round for that. I think they're pretty stoked about it. They already accepted it in a different one that actually got declined. So I know he's down. But then we got the owner of Jalen Hurts, the manager of Jalen Hurts, is getting Gaskin and Kadarius Toney for Hurts, which I think is fair, right? You're talking about 2 players in Gaskin and Hurts that have limited, expectations essentially because they both could be 1 to 2 year players. Well, Kadarius Toney still has a decent amount of upside, so I think that kind of balances it out. And then we have Will Fuller in the 3rd round pick, going for Myles Gaskin.
I love that part.
Which one do you like? The Fuller part?
Yeah, I'm not high on Gaskin, and I don't know what his roster looks like, but if I've got a couple of running backs, I'll take the upside, the potential upside in Will Fuller, in Miami, and maybe that offense takes a step forward and starts throwing the ball a little bit more. I think the only one would be that Gaskin and Toney for Hurts, but I think the value's right. It is just
let me know in the chat. What do you guys think in the chat? Would you guys make these moves? And by the way, it is 2 quarterback league. It is 2 quarterback.
Probably going to be about what he thinks of Toney in that situation? To see is he or her, whoever it is, do they like the prospect of Kadarius Toney coming out?
It's the worst team in our league. His starting running backs right now. His starting running backs are Marlon Mack, and it's another backup. Hold on.
Well, that'll change the game a little bit then. Gaskin looks like a steal at that point.
Yeah, it's hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see if I can deter long enough. Oh God, where is his team? It's a bad team. Like I don't know what's happening with this team. It is Marlon Mack and Sony Michel are his top 2 running backs. His backup running back is Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon. So he needs some help. Meanwhile, he's like 5 or 6 quarterbacks. He has let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he has 6 quarterbacks.
You don't need all that. I know it's a super flex league, or 2 quarterback, whatever it is. I don't think you need 6 though.
No, you don't. It's ridiculous. That's why
you don't have any running backs.
Yeah.
So which one declined it last time?
It was a different person that I pulled in the mix. So Highlander, habitual line stepper, and myself have been in this trade. Highlander, like I have to message him privately because he never gets on. He's the one that has the 6 quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I subbed out the Chris 077. Nice. Yeah, we'll see. And Chris 077 has like 4 starting running backs. So he's
as soon as you pull it off, make sure you put it on Twitter. Everybody follow Chase at FF_intervention, so we can all see the 4-team trade pulled off, and then hopefully we see. What did you say next? The 5-team before the end of the season. I'm
gonna attempt a 5-team one, and if I can't get it, I'm gonna try it a few different times. If I can't get it, then I'm just gonna go straight with a 12-team trade.
Just go after it.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, and I want it to be like major players. Like I don't want to have like some bullshit like, like I don't know, some bullshit like, oh, we're gonna trade 5th round picks.
Right. Yeah.
I want to do like 1st round type talents. Yeah. So that way I can check it off.
Let's talk a little bit about running back. I want to start with this guy because I might hate this running back, and I don't know that I have a legitimate reason to hate him. People who I play with know I don't want anything to do with him, but it's Miles Sanders. I have him at ranked RB 19 in Dynasty, down to 39th overall. But there's two reasons I don't really like Miles Sanders in really any format. But we're talking Dynasty here, and I want to give you those 2 reasons, and then I kind of want to hear either a rebuttal or maybe why I'm wrong on that. The first is his workload. He hasn't really shown the capability of his first 2 seasons, 28 NFL games. He hasn't really shown the capabilities to handle a workload or even to receive a high volume workload. In fact, one time he's received at least 20 carries in a game. That was week 16 his rookie season. He had 20 carries, had a great game. And only 2 times he's ever had 25 touches in a game is week 15 and week 16 of his rookie season. Those 2 weeks are the reason he was a top 10 redraft pick last year, or top 12 round 1, maybe the first part of round 2. He was a very high redraft pick last year and probably moved up ADP in Dynasty as well because of those 2 games. He looked great, and when he got the volume, he produced. But he hasn't got the volume. To compare a couple players here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year was, the quote-unquote bust because everybody loved him so much that he didn't perform to expectations. He had 3 different games that he had at least 20 carries or 25 touches. And then a guy I have ranked actually right below Miles Sanders is Josh Jacobs. I looked at his last 2 weeks, or last 2 years, and he had 12 games of 20 carries and 12 games of 25 touches. That's the volume I want to see from a top running back. That's not volume that we're seeing from Miles Sanders. And then the second point I want to make is efficiency, and not efficiency of actually producing when he's getting the volume, because we know he can do that. But and maybe the volume is the reason he's not efficient in the fantasy scoring. 28 games, 9 times he's ended as a top 12 running back. So you see the upside. It's there. You like the upside. But the problem is the floor is very low for him. 14 times, more than 50% of his games, he's ended outside RB2 range. He can't even crack the top 24 in 50% of his games. So this is just a guy that I don't want anything to do with. 35% of the time you start him, he might end as a top 12 running back, but 50% of the time he's not going to be usable. That's the way I read this anyways. Maybe I'm way off. You have him at 19th overall. So I've opened my mind. I'm ready to hear, honestly, am I wrong? Or if I am, like, why should I be higher on Miles Sanders?
I think it should be a lot higher on Miles Sanders, to be honest with you. It's something I swear this is a talented running back. And the one issue that he had was fumbles in college. He fumbled once every 30.8 attempts. Obviously he hasn't had fumbling issues since coming to the NFL, so he did well to fix them. If you had to guess, right, where he ranked among running backs for opportunity share, because you said volume, he needs volume, right? Where would he rank in opportunity share for running backs? If you had to take a wild guess.
50s?
He was sixth overall. Sixth.
He was what?
Overall. Sixth in opportunity share. The Philadelphia Eagles couldn't stay on the field. Trenton brought up that Philly was broken, and it was very, very broken. They literally could not stay on the field. Their plays per game were atrocious. I don't have the number right in front of me right now, but their plays per game were atrocious. And Miles Sanders was actually wildly efficient. However, they just could not stay on the field. A lot of it had to do with wide receivers, third down conversion rates, the offensive line, yada, yada, yada. There are just so many issues with Philly last year. This year, I don't know if Philly necessarily fixed it, and I don't think Miles Sanders will see the same amount of opportunity share, but I think that they're going to be able to stay on the field a lot more often. And if they're on the field a lot more often, that means more total touches for Miles Sanders. I mean, we've seen certain players who just thrive because of volume. Chris Carson comes to mind immediately because guess what? Russell Wilson could extend drives. He could stay on the field. I think this year Hurts can extend drives and stay on the field if he can limit the turnovers. I'm sitting and looking at Miles Sanders, who, by the way, was I think he was 8th in yards created per touch. I mean, he was 10th in yards created per touch. That's phenomenal. That is something that I want in a running back. He was 8th in yards per touch, which is 5.6. His true yards per carry were 11th with 4.7. I'm loving every little piece of Miles Sanders. And honestly, if he can limit his drops, it's going to be a whole different animal. He had a 15.4% drop rate. His total drops were 8. That was second for the running back position. I hate that. If he can improve on that this year, which I think that he can. We're talking about Aaron Jones type numbers from 2019.
I'd like to see it, and I will definitely eat crow. And if I'm completely wrong, I'm all about it. It does sound like
I don't want you to eat crow. That sounds kind of gross.
It does sound good, but it does sound like
crow.
The reason I'm doing it, the reason I don't like him is because I haven't seen it, but it sounds like I haven't, the numbers that you're throwing out is just because they're not on the field and they can't stay on the field. And hopefully Jalen Hurts can change that this year for him. And then, the pass catching, is that going to happen with the running quarterback? But if he gets, I just would like to see 20 to 25 touches a game. And I think if we can start to see that, his value will skyrocket. Again, we're here live. Chase Vernon from fantasyintervention.com. You can find him every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central live on YouTube for Dynasty Intervention.
9 o'clock
we're talking 9 o'clock your time, right?
Yeah.
9 Eastern, 8 Central. Dynasty Intervention, new time. This I think you guys started the new time last week, right?
Yeah. Yep. You hit it right on the head.
So, and we're talking Dynasty here as well. We're going to move into some wide receivers. One thing I want to gather from you here and hear about is how you're ranking the wide receivers, not individual, but just as a group. When I was going through all the rankings and preparing for the show, it felt like I might be higher on the wide receivers as a whole, maybe higher on the position. I have 13 wide receivers ranked in my top 24. You have 7 ranked in your top 24. Is this positional value for you? Is it just maybe the current state of running back or wide receiver? What's the theory behind maybe having less wide receivers at the top end of your rankings overall than what I have at 13?
So we saw a boom, right? We saw a big boom. We saw a boom. We saw a big boom. We saw a boom in 2020.
I heard a boom right when we started with your Jets flying over.
Now, sitting there and looking at it, we saw a massive influx in talent at the wide receiver or at the running back position and wide receiver position, all skill position players. But essentially, as the skill position players, the influx of talent comes, the widespread play calling has affected the top end wide receivers. And so when you look at the percentages, right, the difference between selecting who was like DJ Moore, who's like 12th ADP for wide receiver, something along those lines, versus like DJ Chark, who's 36th, is the same difference between selecting a running back 1 versus a running back 2. So you're getting significantly more value from running backs by selecting them because of their difference from year to year production. In addition, I also rank in tiers. So when you're ranking in tiers, right, you want to feel comfortable with all the running backs you're taking, or all the wide receivers you're taking, or all the tight ends you're taking in that gap. Running backs, because they do put up similar numbers, make me feel more comfortable drafting them early versus wide receivers. When you look at like the top 12 running backs versus ADP, and I could be wrong on this number. This is off the top of my head. I think 9 out of 12 from ADP wise ended up finishing top 12. Meanwhile, for the wide receiver position, I think it was like 6 or 3. I think it was 6 out of the 12 ended up finishing in the top 12. So I'm sitting there and looking at rankings wise, and I'm like, hey, I know that you get a longer lifetime of production, but at the same time, if you're competitive now and you're making moves to win because you're an up and coming team, which is how I rank, I want accuracy. I want consistency. And that's not something that you get from most of the wide receiver positions at the top end of the draft. Players, let's see, let me pull up the rankings real quick of how you have it. Like DK Metcalf, very matchup dependent. Russell Wilson likes to read his wide receivers. He likes to know the matchups, and then he gives an opportunity. For example, when I think it was like DK Metcalf played, I want to say it was Travis White, smaller corner. He targeted DK Metcalf a whole ton. I love that. But then when they went up against Patrick Peterson, it wasn't anywhere as close to the amount of targets against Patrick Peterson. Justin Jefferson, we still don't know what to expect with that. AJ Brown, I love, but volume could be an issue. Still, I love AJ Brown. Tyreek Hill is probably our biggest discrepancy when it comes to these early round wide receivers. And speed guys tend to fade once they hit the age of like 27, 28. So we don't know what their lifetime expectancy is going to be. Each wide receiver has a question mark. Meanwhile, when I sit there and look at the running backs, Jonathan Taylor really doesn't have too many question marks. Sure, Alvin Kamara produced slightly less with Taysom Hill quarterback, but expecting Jameis Winston is going to be there regardless. Alvin Kamara is going to produce. What questions does Dalvin Cook have outside of his early injury history, like early in his career? I don't think there's as many questions. Nick Chubb's another one. I don't think there's as many questions at the running back position, and I want to try and limit my volatility early on in my drafts. I'll take volatility with the wide receivers in rounds like 3 through 7 or 4 through 7.
I look at it just a little different. I think the reason I have them up there kind of goes back to what you were alluded to earlier in knowing that I want to get those wide receivers, and that's how I want to build my team. I'm not a 0 running back guy by any means, but a lot of times in drafts, I think we even saw it in the start of draft you and I were in together. I took my quarterbacks, and then I took Calvin Ridley, my wide receivers, because I want to get all of those guys, and then I feel like I can go trade for a running. If I want a stud running back, it feels like I can go trade for a stud running back when they're in their prime. And I worry a little bit if I'm going into a startup draft, if I take running back, are those running backs all going to hit at the same time? And what am I going to do everywhere else? That's just, that's at least what I'm looking at. And I think that's probably why I have the wide receivers up a little bit. You can call Tyreek Hill just a homer pick. That's fine because it probably is. He probably is a little high. He was wide receiver 1 for me. I did move him down quite a bit. So I took my Chiefs hat off and did move him down. But Zach in the comments made the comment about wide receiver is just so deep. And I think that would definitely help move them down as well. Knowing that, like you said, that you can get the same production multiple rounds later from a wide receiver, a young wide receiver, a 24, 25-year-old wide receiver, as you can in round 3 or 4. So you make a really good point with that. And maybe I am a little high on some of these guys. I could probably move them down a little bit thinking about your running back comment, but I just really love the wide receivers, and I love building my team around those wide receivers. Let's talk about one wide receiver at least. There's a tight end we have to talk about, and I want to ask about the Washington football team too as we get close to wrapping up. But one wide receiver that you have a little bit further down the ranks than I would expect, Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones recently moves on from Atlanta. Ridley's the number 1 guy in Atlanta. Yes, Kyle Pitts came to town, but other than him, there's nobody else really there to compete with targets anymore. And it's not necessarily where you have Ridley. It's the people that you have in behind. DJ Chark, T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton. Great wide receivers. I'm just interested to know, why do you have Ridley behind those kind of guys? Is it something against Ridley? Do you just love those guys that much more? Why are you lower on Ridley than the rest of us that were ranking on Fantasy Intervention?
I'm glad you asked that because I don't really get this opportunity to talk about him. Nobody really wants to talk about him unless it's all positive. So Calvin Ridley for me, he catches the ball and then he falls down. Like he catches the ball and he falls down. And yes, it did well from last year. But what happens when he's not able to catch the ball because he has 2 people defending him because Julio Jones isn't on the field? Now, I understand that it wasn't the case last year whenever he got hurt. But, when you're able to game plan game after game and you're able to see what shuts him down, like how to shut him down, because that's all teams are going to be focused on this season. Like, wait, you want to focus on Russell Gage? You want to focus on Mike Davis? Sure, Kyle Pitts is, he's great, but he's a rookie. They're going to focus on Calvin Ridley. They're going to shut him down, and they're going to figure out how to do it very early in the season. And we're going to see a repeat of what happened with Juju Smith-Schuster when Antonio Brown left town. It's not going to be pretty. And up until they're able to develop a number 1 wide receiver, I don't want a guy that's going to catch the ball and fall down. I want a playmaker who's able to get yards after the catch, and can avoid tackles. And Calvin Ridley does none of that. The only reason why Calvin Ridley is great is because Matt Ryan is a very, very, very good deep ball thrower. I'm not on Calvin Ridley this year.
I was trying to get this pulled up. I think I took him in the 3rd round of our draft. So I was going to ask you, I assume that you are not a big fan of my draft pick when I took, here it is, Calvin Ridley at 303 before Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, Clyde, Joe Mixon. You're probably not a fan of that,
bro. That was insane to me. And people, I get it, man. Like, he's going into a big opportunity share. Like, he could end up taking all the targets. Well, what targets is he going to take? His average depth of target, where is it? It was something insane. Like, he was just seeing targets. Average target distance was 14.4. His deep targets, he saw 40 deep targets. What is going to change about his role? Is he going to start running shorter routes? Like, I just don't see. I don't see how he can be as productive if he's the wide receiver one and just seeing deep targets. We saw what happened to Sean Jackson type players year after year after year. I swear, they were deep threats. They try to move him into a different position. They end up getting hurt. The dude's 6'1", like 190 pounds. Come on. Like, don't come at me with Calvin Ridley. That is not my player.
And he'll still give you that week 4 and 0 after starting the year hot. Everybody starts to buy into him, put him on your DFS lineup, and then he comes at you with a 0 spot. But
I will say, so I don't know who eats crow. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I guess I'll eat crow. I'll fry one up. I'll fry up a crow and eat a crow. Is that how you say it? I'll eat a crow.
Eat crow.
Maybe
it's a Midwest thing.
I'll eat the meat off of a crow's bones if I don't want to make that commitment.
It might not actually be the saying. Now I feel like I probably just screwed up the whole saying because I do that often. I'll say something and people are like, "What are you saying?"
I'm just giving you shit. I've heard it.
I'm like, isn't that the saying?
I'm just messing with you. yeah, that's the saying. I'm just fucking with you. But yeah, no, I think that I could be wrong with Calvin Ridley, but I've just never been. I've been so far off him that I can't hop on now. And I believe in changing your opinions on players, but I'm so far off Calvin Ridley that I just can't see how he can be productive. My mind can't just wrap. I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I think there's definitely a realm of it's 100% in the realm of possibility where he is the only option, and teams just go after him. Teams just go after him.
Trenton said bet. Damn it! Do I have to do this on a live show? No, I have to eat a crow.
Need a crow, yeah. Let's move on to this tight end because I want to ask you your thoughts on the tight end. Usually I go an hour. I say I'm going to go an hour, and I never actually go an hour. So
I'm cool,
as long as you're good to talk about some more things here, I'm good to talk about a couple more things. I won't keep you all night, but I want to get your thoughts on one particular tight end. You have him the highest out of any of us ranking, 104th overall. You took him in the middle of the 9th round. I have it pulled up. Yeah, the middle of the 9th round at 9. What was it? 9-9 somewhere in there. 9-6. 9-6. You took him over Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, but really also ahead of Dallas Goedert. And that was the one that was like surprising to me. And I'm talking about Adam Troutman. What is it that you're so fired up about this prospect? Why is that?
I'll answer your question with a question. Who is Adam Troutman competing for targets with?
From the tight end position, no one.
Nobody, right?
No one at all.
Have the Saints used the tight end year after year after year on a relevant basis? Absolutely. I'll answer it for
Absolutely. You. Yeah. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're good.
Drink. I wasn't ready for two of them back to back.
He has 0 drops. He's able to get open on like a regular basis. His contested catch rate is 66.7%. Well, it's actually 66.666666. Sitting there and looking at it, I mean, this guy's just really, really good, especially when it comes to being able to get open and what he does in space. He does catch everything close to the line of scrimmage, but he was not utilized. Meanwhile, PFF has him graded as the number 1 run blocking tight end, which means he's going to be in there on 3rd downs. That's going to relate to a lot of play action type movement, which could end up opening him up, and a lot of red zone opportunities, especially with Alvin Kamara. Now, will he end up getting every single red zone opportunity? Hell no. But if they're in the red zone consistently and they can work off of the play action fake with Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, you're going to see Adam Troutman in there in a lot of plays, and all it takes is opportunities. He's going to see a good amount of opportunities, especially like I mentioned in the red zone. Meanwhile, I believe his yards after the catch were absolutely insane per target. It's just like everything is just lining up for this guy. He crushed the agility drills in the combine. He's very, very good at getting open. He's only been playing tight end for like 3 years now. I think he's going into his 4th year as a tight end, and yet he's still mastering the position on every aspect possible. I love Adam Troutman moving forward. He's going to be a top end tight end, and he could end up being like the George Kittle type player or the Travis Kelce type player where, yeah, they weren't valued highly coming out of the draft, but they worked their way up. They practice hard. They train hard. They're intelligent players. He was a former quarterback. He knows what the quarterback looks at. He knows where to go when plays break down. He's a smash home run for a sleeper tight end. And although he might not do it 100% this year, like it might not be like, oh, he's a tight end, top 5 tight end this year. He will be a top 5 tight end within the next 2 or 3 seasons, no doubt in my mind.
Well, I traded for him in one league, so I'm ready for that to happen. I just hadn't seen the volume yet. I don't know how he can demand it with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, but your point on the run blocking and being in there on those running downs in the NFL, but to get to the play action, that I think that really helps because that's built-in volume for him, and it's just gonna happen because they're gonna run those type of plays. I think that's a really good point to mention because a lot of these guys, that's not always the case, right? If I'm playing tight end and I'm a pass catching tight end, I'm not usually in there. That's where the tight end 2 or 3 on the depth chart will go in, or a left tackle will come, backup left tackle will come in, whatever, around the goal line, those type of things. So to keep Troutman on the field, it'll be interesting to see how many snaps he plays early in the season. But I think that if we start to see 75, 80% of snap shares early, that could even very quickly raise his value of the type of prospect he's going to be.
He played 47%. 47% of the snap share last year. He played on 47% of the Saints plays run last year. He was just used a lot more as a blocker because they're trying to develop him into a pass catcher. Meanwhile, he was first in fantasy points per target, I believe, for the tight end position. He's definitely top 5. He got 2.38 fantasy points per target last season. He's a monster. He reminds me a lot of Fabian Moreau, although Fabian Moreau's Foster Moreau. Foster Moreau is just a monster whenever he gets an opportunity. He's just limited with opportunities. He is sitting there as a incredible prospect who's just a young athlete ready to get on the field. And Matt brought up he's 6'5", 255, and ran a 4.8. Go check out his agility score. He has one of the best agility scores for the 3-cone drill in tight end history. Like, his ability to get open is impeccable. Like, he is so quick and nimble on his feet. And I'm guessing it came from his time spending with the quarterback and having to maneuver in the pocket, right? But I mean, he is quick as hell. Like, his agility score is what you're looking at there. Like, screw his 40 time. Let's go get him.
Player profile's got him in the 95th percentile of agility score.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
And it also 80th percentile of catch radius. I mean, he's going to go out. He's going to go up and get it as well.
Probably
I'm moving him up. I'm going to move him up after the podcast. I'm going to move him up already. I have my tight end 19, but I think that now that I could probably move him up into 15, 16 range and still be comfortable. I don't want to go too high yet. I want to see a little bit more, but when we talk about the players, the measurables here, I don't see why not. And the run blocking thing is huge for me.
Nick Vinnette is the number 2 tight end. Garrett Griffin, if you've ever heard of him, is the number 3 tight end. Juwan Johnson, who is wide receiver in the 2020 class, he came in as a wide receiver, is the number 4. Like, this is, I mean, he's going to end up taking 90% of the snaps tight end minimum. Like, he is a monster. Go get Adam Troutman. If you don't have Adam Troutman, go get Adam Troutman. I don't care what
I got him for the 18th pick in the rookie draft. 16 team, I have the 202. And it was a part of a bigger deal, but the way I broke it down, it felt like I was trading the 18th pick for him, and I was very happy with that because in that range was going to be a bunch of wide receivers that you're hopeful for, and maybe like a Pat Freiermuth, which I would take Troutman over him any day of the week. So
in a heartbeat.
I was pretty happy about that. I'm happy to have him on there. Stand your ground. I don't have to stand my ground on every player. And now I'm kind of feeling it. And I have him on my team now. I might have to move him up a little bit after hearing that argument. Chase, I want to tell you one of the hardest things for me with this rankings was where to fit the rookies in with all the veterans. That's just, and that probably comes with being a rookie ranker myself and just not having a lot of reps at this. But that was a difficult task for me. When I'm looking at the rookies, I try to look at their profiles. I'm trying to look at their measurables, and I listen and I read a lot from people who are a lot smarter than I am on these rookies. And then I kind of come to a conclusion. But I wanted to ask you, when you're ranking these rookies versus the veterans, what carries more weight, the opportunity or the talent?
For rookies or for players as a whole?
I mean, for rookies mainly, coming into the league, are you mainly looking at what they've done in college and the talent that they're bringing in, or what opportunity they're walking into? For instance, like Najee Harris is walking into clear-cut role number one running back on a team, but maybe a bad offensive line, where ETN is maybe going to be the number one, but also there's still James Robinson. There's a little bit more question marks around the opportunity. So I was just curious of, does talent from their college days or is the opportunity they're walking into, what kind of weighs more heavily?
If Shane was here, he'd hate me. I like system. It's not even opportunity necessarily, because we don't know opportunities like for players. I like systems. I feel like it just depends on the weight to each one. Like, for example, man, the Pittsburgh offensive line is terrible. If it was just average, I think that Najee Harris is far better than ETN in terms of that. But it is so bad that you have to weigh that. And system-wise, you have Urban Meyer who's saying he's going to use ETN in the slot, whatever. Like, that doesn't matter to me. But he still split carries with James Robinson. But we sit there and we look at it like Javonte Williams in the system, they're going to run. They were fourth last year, I think, in run opportunities, something like. They were definitely top 10. Meanwhile, the type of running style fits Javonte Williams. My concern is the passing down opportunity, but if Teddy Bridgewater ends up taking over the quarterback position, like, that's money for Javonte Harris. So I actually kind of like Javonte Harris more than all those guys. Will I draft Javonte Harris first? No, but I will also trade back if Najee Harris is there in order to get Javonte Williams and also acquire, other pieces in the process. I don't know. I have to. For me, it's a balancing act. It's which player fits where when they're good. For example, I liked Elijah Moore when I didn't think that Jamison Crowder was actually going to re-sign. I liked Elijah Moore with his hands. I loved Elijah Moore's hands. I wasn't a huge fan of Elijah Moore's talent. However, his hands are amazing. Then I saw him land with the Jets, and they like to use wide receivers behind the line of scrimmage under Mike LaFleur's system, which came from San Francisco. It should be the same exact system moving forward. So when we sit there and we look at it, and we were able to assess, Elijah Moore with his hands beyond the line of scrimmage. I mean, you're talking about probably 90 targets this upcoming season, probably 70 receptions, 75 receptions. You should have an insane reception rate. And then all of a sudden, Jamison Crowder stays in the fold. So it's like, damn, like, this is all of a sudden going to fuck up the whole system.
He never goes away.
Yeah, so it's going to fuck up the whole system that I had planned for Elijah Moore. I mean, Elijah Moore could have possibly seen like 120 targets. But now he's going to be used probably in more of a deep role setting while Jamison Crowder plays underneath, because Jamison Crowder doesn't have the speed to beat defenders deep. So with that being said, Elijah Crowder is no longer, one of my favorites to go with. It just depends on situation. Opportunity matters. Talent matters. Abilities matter, and system matters. It's just which one weighs in more for you based off it. If I thought that Elijah Moore is going to beat out Jamison Crowder because of his talent, I wouldn't have a fear. But if Elijah Moore landed with a team like, I don't know, the Cardinals, where they don't motion and Elijah Moore struggles to get off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And they don't throw behind the line of scrimmage because Kyler Murray can run. I also would hate Elijah Moore more than what I hate with the situation now with the Jets. Rondell Moore can beat people off the line of scrimmage because he's tiny, has a great first step. I think for me, it just depends on if that player is in the right system and if he can beat out the people ahead of him is what matters the most.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So more of the system, and if it fits the player's archetype, if it fits the player's abilities of what that player can bring to the table, and if that's the opportunity they're going to get, I love Rondell Moore in Arizona. I don't know if he's going to be the number 2 this year, but
he will be.
I'm done. I'm ready for Christian Kirk just to go away. And so.
He's
AJ Green is done and washed as well. So I just love Rondell. You brought him up. I'm like, yes, I want as much Rondell Moore as I can get.
I have a lot of shares on Rondell Moore. A lot of shares.
All right, go ahead.
Kadarius Toney is another one, by the way. I love his talent. I hate his situation. He was in the late first round for me in rookie drafts. He's now in the late second round because of his landing spot. I hate him landing with the Giants.
Yeah, I think that's it brings up the point of like, just wait. We get really excited after the NFL season and we want to you start to hear about people having rookie drafts and just jumping into it. Just wait until April, let the draft happen and then have those rookie drafts. Don't get ahead of yourselves because I think that most people's rookie rankings change once we kind of know where those rookies are going to be, the systems, the teams that they're playing on. All right, last topic I want to jump on real quick because you're a Washington football fan and you host Washington Intervention every Monday night on the Fantasy Intervention YouTube page. Go check that out. Subscribe to Fantasy Intervention. Sorry, to youtube.com/Fantasy Intervention.
I do it all the time.
Go check them out. The Washington Intervention Monday nights. You guys you talk about the Washington football team, and which is insightful because then you also talk about their opponents, at least you have recently. But I want to hear from you, just a pure dynasty standpoint over the next – if I tell you can only have them for the next 3 years, do you want, the wide receiver in Terry McLaurin or the elite potential stud running back in Antonio Gibson?
I hate this question. I like Terry McLaurin. I'm a big fan, but I think he's going to be more volatile. Antonio Gibson is going to be a staple. I'm going to take Antonio Gibson as a lock. Antonio Gibson is a top 12 running back for me moving forward. I think they're going to improve the offensive line, not this year, but the next year. It's going to suck when we lose Brandon Scherf, but, that's just part of the game. Meanwhile, he's a wide receiver transferring over to a running back position who didn't have experience pass blocking. J.D. McKissic outsnapped Antonio Gibson by almost double last year. So sitting there and looking at it, by almost double on third down last year because he wasn't able to pass block. So I like Antonio Gibson moving forward. I think that Antonio Gibson is going to get plenty of targets, even if he cuts those targets down to, the 60% target share with J.D. McKissic on third downs. I think we're going to see a tremendous uptick. I mean, he was still running back 13 last season, running back 13 without seeing a ton of targets. Let's give Antonio Gibson not just the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him some juice, man. Let's juice up Antonio Gibson. He's a lock for me.
Yeah, and McKissic did he have 120 targets last year? He was well over 100. What's that?
I think it was 80 receptions.
80 receptions. And even if that levels out, Gibson doesn't even have to overtake fully McKissic's role, but even if it levels out a little bit to where McKissic comes down to 60 and Gibson gets closer to 60, he's smashing top 8 running back probably potentially in 2021. I like Antonio Gibson. I just wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure I talked a little bit of Washington football team with you. My interest in that team is going to be, maybe what their mascot's going to be, but actually what they're going to do at quarterback moving forward. just because that defense is so good. It's gonna be a really good football team, I think.
Say hello to Matt Ryan in 2022.
Is that they're just gonna continue to bring on the next, the next old veteran who no longer is going to play at wherever they're at. Who knows?
They have
as long as
we're going to be stuck in mediocrity forever.
If it helps win football games, really, you just need that game. You needed an Alex Smith. I mean, that was a guy who was a game manager. He just kind of made sure you guys won the games and let the defense do everything else.
Got to bring up the sad moments, huh? You're going to bring up Sean Taylor next, Trevor?
No, but hey, we love Alex Smith. We were ready for Alex Smith to go. We didn't. Chiefs fans didn't realize how ready they were, until they actually saw Patrick Mahomes do the things he did. But I think it was the right time for Alex Smith to move on from the Chiefs organization. But he remade the Chiefs. Like, he brought the Chiefs up from the dead. And then he passed it on to Mahomes to let Mahomes take it to the promised land. All right, Chase, let's get out of here. But before we do, where can people find you? Where can people find your work? Tell everybody anywhere you're at.
You guys can go check us out over there at fantasyintervention.com. Once again, that's fantasyintervention.com. You guys can go find me on Twitter, ff_intervention. You go check out our content at joinourscircle_ on Twitter as well. YouTube.com/fantasyintervention is the biggest help. If you guys hit subscribe, I will love you forever. I will send you whispers of sweet nothings that you can hold up to your ear if you subscribe. Just let me know. But you're also going to have to hit me up on Facebook or on Twitter as well. Big shout out to Fantasy Football Discussion on Facebook. If you guys are Facebook users, go check out Fantasy Football Discussion. It's a group with over 24,000 active members daily who just have all sorts of fun stuff to say, ? No, but go check out Fantasy Football Discussion, and then fantasyintervention.com. Go check out articles. Hopefully we'll have some quick shots coming at you, along with some other things. I'm very excited for this upcoming football season.
I as well am excited, and hopefully I'll have some quick shots up on youtube.com/fantasyintervention. I'll make sure to share that with the fans of the Rumbles of Red. Subscribe to my YouTube page as well while you're there. YouTube, the Rumbles of Red on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Trev's Fantasy Pod. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Find us anywhere you find your podcast. Please subscribe. Leave a review if you will. You can find more of my work. You can find the rankings that we just talked about today on fantasyintervention.com. Top 200 Dynasty rankings. They are live. And we hope and expect to have some Superflex rankings as well as 2021 redraft rankings go up at some point as well. So continue to follow along there. Chase, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thanks to everybody in the chat for joining in and being interactive tonight. Please hit the like button on your way out, and we will see you next time.